Hello there. Today's story on Indian Story Read Along is called Baker Street. It is from Tinkle Digest, one of those small, thicker books. And this came out in May 2015. This is Baker Street. This is the story of the land of second breakfast, but not related to Lord of the Rings, and of Shibi Singh, a baker who ran a small but popular bakery. One day at the king's court. So I like these stories about kings and queens a lot because they have like goofy kings and queens, and sometimes they're just like really, really ridiculous, and they're not at all serious. And you will never find like a goofy prime minister or a goofy president today. They're all very serious. These guys are just ridiculous. So, and this guy is totally like that. One day at the king's court, my 50th birthday is approaching. On this day, I will allow no bad food in the kingdom. I could never live in the kingdom. And how should we ensure that, Your Highness? Asked the minister. And he says, I have a foolproof plan. The king announced a cookery quell. A quell is kind of like rounding up people and forcing them really to compete or do something that they don't want to do. And it is mandatory usually. They're not just like, oh, let's do this and everyone who wants to can. No, it's not like that. It is a mandatory competition most of the time, a quell. He gave each cook 3 chances to present their best food. If the king didn't like the food, the restaurant would be shut down. Look at all these people. They don't want to be there and they probably cook well, but there is something wrong with this king. Like if he's rejecting this many people, I don't think all these people had functioning restaurants. And for some reason, he didn't like the food, so then they had to shut down. There's no way they would have been in business if no one came and ate their food before this guy came along. Finally, it was Shibi's turn. So he eats the thing and goes, too salty, you lose your first chance. Shibi worked all night on his second preparation. At his second attempt, not spicy enough. And he goes, but it's a carrot cake. Now you know there's something wrong with this king. A carrot cake, sure. Maybe you'll put some spices in there, like a little bit of ginger and some nutmeg and things like that. Come on. Like, what does he want? Chana masala? And he goes, maybe that's why it wasn't spicy. But it's ridiculous. And he goes, rejected. This reminds me of a certain US president. That evening, he's sitting there and he's so upset. He's at home. What am I going to do? The king is going to reject any dish I offer him. I might as well give up. And then his daughter comes along. She says, don't worry. I have an idea tomorrow. Instead of taking one dish, take 2. I will bake the second one myself. But my little cupcake, you don't know how to bake. And the little girl says, don't worry, I have a recipe that will surprise you and the king. You know what? I'm so weird. I was like, she is gonna poison his cake. Because back in those days, realistically, back in those days, did you guys know that kings had food tasters? And even now, presidents and heads of state and stuff who are very, very afraid for their welfare, they have food tasters. Someone comes along and takes a bite of their food to prove it's not poisoned. And then they eat the rest of the food if it's not poisoned. So, I mean, look at the kid's smile. Look at her smile. I was like, she's definitely, no, it's not that kind of a story. No matter how much we want it to be. On the third and final day, Shibi is there and he goes, I'll have more of this. I am rejecting it, but I will have more. Totally reminds me of someone else. But your majesty, Shibi is in tears. Suddenly, the little girl comes with him to the court, right? My king, she says, I have a proposition for you before you reject my father's dish. And the king says, what? What if I make this dish tastier for you without adding anything, removing anything, or doing anything at all to it? Then will you let my father keep his bakery?" And King says, "Tastier without doing anything to it?" Very curious indeed. All right, I will allow it. Sheeby's daughter presented the dish she had baked. "Please taste this cake." "Come on, poison." No, no, no. But look at the eyes. You'd think for a second it might be poison. The cake was burnt and tasted horrible. "Oh, what nastiness is this?" says the king. And then she says, "Now try my father's dish again." Well, she doesn't say it like that, but I want her to. Eaten immediately after the burnt cake, Sheeby's dish tasted delicious. And then the king says, "The girl has indeed managed to improve the dish's taste without touching it. Not only has she succeeded in saving her father's bakery, but she has also made me realize my folly. I hereby call off the cookery quell." Fantastic. Everyone can just go back to normal life. Chefs across the kingdom celebrated and cheered for Sheeby's daughter. And Sheeby's bakery became the most famous eatery in the kingdom. But its most popular dish remained the burnt cake, which everyone ate before eating anything else. Now I'm going to put that rule in my house. Everyone eat the cake before you eat the chana masala. The end. So I like stories like this, and they don't make these tinkles anymore, so that's why I like to read them out for you. So they'll always be preserved here on the internet. If you like stories like this as well, please subscribe to Indian Story Read Along, and we will see you next time.